The DNC begins, and all kinds of people give all kinds of speeches. Some of them fall flatter than others here. The president comes and visits my state to do a rebuttal on the DNC and the speeches that took place on the first day. Thousands of people get out of their house to go and protest getting out of their house to go and vote in November. We'll talk a bit about that. And did Rush Limbaugh call Kamala Harris a hoe? It's pretty sad that I wouldn't be surprised if the answer was yes. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, guys, and welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch to get to today. It's going to be, for the most part, we're going to sit back and watch a lot of the stuff from the DNC. We'll sit back and talk a bit about what's going on there, and then just a couple other news stories that slipped in under the wire because it was a pretty slow news day yesterday from what I saw. Everybody was just sitting down and bracing for that DNC to come out. And then we'll talk about the Twitter trending, which is also mostly about the DNC as well. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We have got the Generational Gap, whose co-host was kind enough to step in and help me when my co-host had a work emergency last night and picked up for me. We've also got the Daily Ignoramus. We've got the R-Rated Conservative. We've got the Freckles and Brit Show and the Breakdown with Birkenhoff. So head on over there and check everybody out. Pick up some of our swag and help us support great creators because it's time for us to really do some support for everybody. So head on over there and check us out. All right, we're going to start by looking at the stocks for the day here. So for the Dow Jones, it looks like it tumbled quite a bit yesterday. We sat there just about ready to hop over the 28,000 mark once again. We were just on the precipice of it, and we actually started out, I think, just above the 27,970 was where we started off there, but it tumbled throughout the day, 0.31%, so not a lot of tumble, but just a little bit of tumble throughout the day. Possibly because everybody started hearing what the DNC wants to do to you once they take power and rip it away from the power of people that actually care about you. So that could be a part of the reason for the tumble, but we will look into it. Looks like we might have a good day as well. Both IBD and MarketWatch seem to agree with that, so let's see what they have to say. The blueprint for a better portfolio. Register now. No. All right, from Investors Business Daily, Dow Jones futures rise on strong earnings from the Home Depot, Walmart, and Tesla surges 4%. From Scott Latonin, Dow Jones futures were much higher earlier Tuesday, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ 100 futures after a Monday's tech-driven stock market rally. Home Depot and Walmart jumped on strong earnings results early Tuesday. Nvidia and Tesla surged to new highs Monday on price target hikes, while Dow Jones leader Apple also set an all-time high. The tech-heavy NASDAQ climbed 1% to close at an all-time high, so we got another record. Just a few months ago, back in March, we said we are never going to see record numbers like this again. The economy has crashed forever. We need to get a Democrat in to save it, and we just set a record for the NASDAQ yesterday. Huzzahs are in order. The S&P 500 rallied 0.3%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average lagged with a 0.3% loss or 86 points. Among the Dow Jones stocks, Apple hit a record high on Monday. Home Depot jumped 3% on strong results, while Walmart rallied 6% early Tuesday before sharply cutting gains. IBD leaderboard stocks, Nvidia and Tesla surged to new highs with respective advances of 6.7% and 11.2% early Tuesday. Tesla surged another 4% on pace to set another all-time high. They're coming. It's coming back, guys. Top stocks nearby zones include Adobe, IBD stock of the day, Amazon, and JD.com. Adobe and Amazon, are on IBD leaderboard. Early Tuesday, the Dow Jones futures rallied 0.2% versus fair value, while S&P 500 futures were up 0.2%. NASDAQ 100 futures gained 0.35% versus fair value. Remember, overnight action in Dow Jones futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Among exchange-traded funds, Innovator IBD 50 rallied 1.6 Monday. showing that top growth stocks sharply outperformed the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The ETF of top growth stocks is about 1% off its 52-week high. So we're looking at another record too. The NASDAQ 100 linked Invesco QQQ Trust ETF moved up 1.2% to close at 275.32. Meanwhile, the SPDR S&P 500 ETF gained 0.3% to 337.92. Amid the coronavirus stock market rally, the tech-heavy Nasdaq is up 24% for the year through Monday's close. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 is up 4.7%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 2.4% year to date through the August 17th close. So the retailers, the techs are up, and your industrials are down. So that's what we're seeing up out of here, and we might see the industrials get back as soon as we can get people back to work. As soon as this is all cured on November 4th and we get people back to work, we'll start to see those industrials pick up too. Unfortunately, inflation is going to mean that we're going to see record highs, which have about the same effect as what the last record highs were, but still, getting it back up there and get them out there, well, it's a good thing. Let's see what MarketWatch has to say. Nasdaq books record close, Dow ends lower as Wall Street investors await fresh spark from Mark DeCambry. U.S. stock benchmarks finished mostly higher Monday, with the S&P 500 index ending near record territory despite a congressional stalemate over fresh stimulus to help Americans and business hurt by the coronavirus pandemic. The industrial average fell 86.11 points, or 0.3%, to end at 27,844.91, or 5.8% away from its all-time record close, not adjusted for inflation. The S&P 500 index rose 9.14%, or 9.14 points, or 0.3%, closing at 3.38199, only 0.1% away from its record closing peak at 3386.15. The Nasdaq Composite added 110.42 points, or 1%, finishing at 11,129.73 while booking its 33rd record close of the year. On Friday, the Dow gained 1.8% for the week. The S&P 500 booked a weekly advance of 0.6%. Friday's gain turned the Nasdaq barely positive for the week, up 1%. But here's the kicker, is what drove the market. The tech-heavy Nasdaq set a fresh record close on Monday, even as strategists say a broader market rally outside the high-flying technology stocks likely will be needed for the S&P 500 to make a sustained push above its prior record. Today, we're still looking at this headwind around another fiscal package being passed, and some skepticism about that getting done, said Joe Quinlan, head of Chief Investment Office Market Strategy at Merrill and Bank of America Private Bank, in an interview. But the key is breadth. We want to see that improve. Moves for the equity market come against the backdrop of failed negotiations between Democrats and Republicans centered on advancing a new package of aid to help laborers affected by COVID-19 pandemic after $600 a week in unemployment assistance were halted at the end of last month. I see that they're taking the president's executive order out of the news right now because it's devastating to everything. While aid for the state and local governments and enhanced unemployment aid remain the most contentious issues, funding for the USPS ahead of mail-in voting has emerged as a new issue. Mark Hackett, Chief of Investment Research at Nationwide, wrote in a note, with the U.S. Postal Service now in the spotlight, House Democrats on Monday said they would vote Saturday on a bill to bar operational changes at the agency that could slow mail service ahead of the November 3rd election, while injecting it with $25 billion in additional funding. But watch the money, because I guarantee you there's going to be something else buried in that bill, so we'll watch that as we go. But that's what's driving this here. The stimulus package and the House coming together to vote on the post office, which I could see that being a lot of customers too, because a lot of retirement is sitting up in the stocks that go along with that. So the people are going to want to buy if they're coming out of the post office, but that's what we're speculating up out of this. We will see what happens today as we read into this tomorrow, but let's talk about the stupidity of the DNC. So we're going to start today with ABC News' 5 takeaways from the first night of the Democratic National Convention, from Kendall Carson and Meg Cunningham. The first virtual convention opened on Monday night with a gathering of sorts featuring a diverse roster of Democratic Party loyalists, members of the old guard, ascending stars, former 2020 contenders, and even some Republicans. Lincoln Project. Bullshit. Over 4 days, Democrats are set to deliver an overriding message of unity, one that they hope will carry through to November and bring voters of all stripes to the Big Tent Party. Dominating the night, which is framed around the three major crises that continue to grip the nation and were completely manufactured by the media of the 2020 election, the coronavirus pandemic, the ongoing economic downturn the virus sparked, and the national reckoning over racial injustice, is the party's push to contrast President Donald Trump and presumptive Democrat, the thing. Biden, the speakers consistently argued, is the only one who can lead the country out of chaos and divisiveness. Biden can't lead an ice cream cone to his mouth. This year's festivities are a sharp departure from conventions of the past, which are historically daunting productions planned years in advance and known for raucous crowds of party loyalists packed inside a convention hall, but the coronavirus pandemic has dramatically minimized the nominating celebration's footprint in Milwaukee, with major programming taking place remotely across the country. The convention's climax comes on Thursday when Biden officially accepts the party's nomination at his 12th convention, marking the start of the general election season. On Wednesday, the party is set to make history, nominating the first black person and the first woman of Indian descent as vice presidential candidate, Senator Kamala Harris. At the heart of the Biden campaign's, or at the heart rather of the Biden's campaign to oust Trump is a call to restore the soul of the country, and it is the thematic thread connecting every speech, taped video, and montage at the first night of the convention. House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, whose endorsement in late February helped propel Biden to the nomination, called Biden an adopted son of South Carolina, arguing that the differences between Biden and Trump could not be more clear. Yes, Trump can string together a coherent sentence. We will need a president who sees unifying people as a requirement of the job, a president who understands the true meaning of community and how to build it through trust and humility, Clyburn said. We need a president who understands both profound loss and what it takes to bounce back. That's why I stand with Joe. Another longtime friend of Biden, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, delivered both a personal appeal for Biden's candidacy and an implicit blistering critique of Trump. Meanwhile, putting more coronavirus patients into nursing homes so they will spread the virus and kill your grandparents that happen to live in New York City. We need a leader as good as our people, a leader who appeals to the best within us, not the worst, a leader who can unify, not divide, Cuomo said. I know that man. I've worked with that man. I've seen his talent, I've seen his strength, I've seen his pain, and I've seen his heart. Joe Biden can restore the soul of America, and that's exactly what our country needs today. Beyond the virtual format, the convention balanced an ideological labyrinth, embracing the progressive wing of the party and Republicans' disillusioned by the president. The focus of the night wasn't entirely on the party's base, but instead on the flanks that could broaden the coalition Biden is seeking to build. Senator Bernie Sanders, the progressive stalwart of the last of the 2020 candidates to exit the race, cited the progress his insurgent movement has made, suggesting that priorities that once seemed radical only years ago are now considered mainstream. And that's a part of the reason that you're failing right now, in spite of the fact that we are running a Manhattan Democrat as the Republican president. Because this outrageous stuff that Bernie Sanders pushed is now mainstream. Pudding cups for all, and everything else. Every week we will give away to all of our voters. It's mainstream now. He also turned to all of the reasons why his loyal backers must line up behind Biden, telling his base that while he and Biden are very different, he knows the former vice president will move us forward. Joe supports raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, Sanders said. Joe will also make it easier for workers to join unions, create 12 weeks of paid family leave, fund universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds, and make childcare affordable for millions of families. While Joe and I disagree on the best path to get universal coverage, he has a plan that will greatly expand healthcare and cut the cost of prescription drugs and tapioca pudding that is my favorite. Sanders also underscored the stakes of the election. Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Trump golfs. He said in a sharp jab at the president. We must come together, defeat Donald Trump, and elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as our next president and vice president. My friends, the price of failure is just too great to imagine. Well, for Sanders, the price of failure means that capitalism will be shown as the superior market, and his radical ideas will be kicked to the side, as we're starting to see off of this, as we're starting to see from the market. And Sanders wasn't alone. Former Ohio Governor John Kasich, who ran for the Republican nomination against Trump in 2016, had one of the more controversial speeches of the night, with his presence roiling some of the left, and brought one of the most unique pitches for Biden to voters on the fence. Kasich, who crossed party lines to appear at the DNC, was not alone in his stance, but he was the most high-profile Republican speakers and reflected the breadth of Biden's efforts in courting voters. I'm sure there are Republicans and independents who couldn't imagine crossing over to support a Democrat, Kasich said. They fear Joe may turn sharp left and leave them behind. I don't believe that because I know the measure of the man. It's reasonable, faithful, respectful, and, no one pushes Joe around. This is amazing. So, we've got to talk about this for a second because the sharp contrast between these two paragraphs is amazing. First off, we have Bernie Sanders coming out and praising Biden for the fact that Sanders' insurgent movement, and it said insurgent movement on there, is moving Biden as far to the left as they can get Biden and as far to the left as they can get the party. And then we immediately have Kasich turning around and saying, oh no, we're not moving the party to the left. No, not at all. Nobody fucking knows what's going on with the Democrat Party. Nobody knows what the platform is. Nobody knows a thing about this at this point. And we're at the convention. We have no idea. They're supposed to unveil the platform at some point off this, but nobody knows what's going on over here. The most that we're getting out of the DNC right now is, hey, he's not Trump. Vote for him. Honestly, and I was a Democrat for a long time, for the majority of my life. I actually volunteered to do canvassing for the Al Gore campaign, to give you an idea on where I stood. Until I grew up and started to realize that everybody's a bastard in politics. Until I grew up and realized that, I was a Democrat. But the difference being, at the time, when I was younger, the Democrats could get up on the stage at the convention and say, hey, this is what I want to do for you. This is a platform. This is what we want to do. And instead, the only platform that we have right now is, hey, vote for me. I'm not Trump. So, yeah, that's what I'm seeing out of this here. And the next couple paragraphs here off of this are covered in some of the rest of these articles here. So I'm going to bump off of ABC News for a little bit on this. But, man, there's no substance to any of this. All right, let's keep going. From CNN Politics. George Floyd's family leads moment of silence during the DNC. A moment of silence is held during the 2020 virtual Democratic National Convention for George Floyd, with his brother, Philonise Floyd, speaking from Texas in support of Biden. Let's hear what we have to say off this here. I'll turn your ears on and we'll listen to this quick. Maybe.
My brother George was selfless. He always made sacrifices for his family, friends, and even complete strangers. George had a giving spirit, a spirit that has shown up on streets around our nation and around the world. People of all races, all ages, all genders, all backgrounds, peacefully protesting in the name of love and unity. It's a fitting legacy for our brother, but George should be alive today. Breonna Taylor should be alive today. Ahmaud Arbery should be alive today. Eric Garner should be alive today. Stephon Clark, Tatiana Jefferson, Sandra Bland, they should all be alive today. So it's up to us to carry on the fight for justice. Our actions will be their legacies. We must always find ourselves in what John Lewis called good trouble.
All All right, that's enough of that one there. I can't. First off, George Floyd did not die from the fact that a police officer was kneeling on his neck. That has been debunked over at this point. He had a toxic collection of drugs in his system at the point. Now, I don't believe that he would have survived if he'd have been taken to the hospital. But of course, we wouldn't have the dramatic cell phone video that's driving everything else that we have going on around the country right now either. So there's a couple things that go along with this, but it's then a couple other things. First off, was he selfless? Was he a giving person when he was holding a gun to the stomach of a pregnant woman? They can try and saint this guy all that they want, but for the reality of everything else off of this, no, he didn't deserve to die out there. I don't think he would have survived out of all of this. And the giving spirit, this is what got me. Is the giving spirit the spirit that is removing 70-inch TVs from Best Buy in the middle of a riot? Removing merchandise from a Target after they smash up the registers? Is that the giving spirit that you want your brother to be remembered by? Because that's what we're seeing off of this here. Now, yes, I believe in what he said with Breonna Taylor. Yes, she should probably be alive because no-knock raid should have been illegal from the start. I'm going to go on a rant on that at some point. I am... Because that whole situation needs to be explained. But yes, that was a justified situation where they should say that, yes, that woman should be alive. But the fact that they're trying to saint this guy is just disgusting. But that's what we see off of this here. Let's keep going. From the New York Post. Bernie Sanders urges left-wing supporters to join him in backing Joe Biden at the DNC. From Stephen Nelson, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders said on the first night of the Democratic National Convention that President Trump is leading us down the path of authoritarianism. Bernie Sanders, socialist, economic authoritarian, says President Trump is leading us down the path of authoritarianism. Let that sink in for just a second. Sanders, a self-declared socialist, endorsed Joe Biden and urged his left-wing supporters to join him. "We have moved this country in a bold new direction," Sanders said to his backers. "Our movement continues. It's getting stronger every day. Many of the ideas we fought for, but just a few years ago were considered radical, are now mainstream." Sanders cited Trump's recent actions and remarks to back his claim of authoritarianism. "During this president's term, the unthinkable has become normal," Sanders said. "He has tried to prevent people from voting, undermined the U.S. Postal Service, deployed the military and federal agents against peaceful protesters, threatened to delay the election, and suggested that he will not leave office if he loses." Citation needed, please, Mr. Sanders, because no, he didn't say that. He said he didn't know what was going to happen with the election, but he's not trying to undermine the post office. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but my God, they're going to run this narrative into the ground because the George Floyd narrative doesn't fit them anymore. And the coronavirus narrative isn't fitting them anymore. They're going to try and find something else to run into the ground at this point. Sanders also slammed what he called Trump's negligence during the coronavirus pandemic. "Nero fiddled when Rome burned. Trump golfs," Sanders quipped. Well, here's reality. It's your left-wing faction that's burning the country at this point. So, and they're not burning the whole country. They're not burning small-town Wisconsin. Hell, they're not even burning Madison at this point. I don't know what they're doing in Milwaukee, but a lot of that's going to be coming out of other states of this. But no, you try and fill this narrative, and all you're doing is hurting your own constituents when your shock troops and your foot soldiers are out burning these big American cities. And then the good people with money are coming out here, and hopefully they stop voting the way that they're doing in the big cities. But that's what we heard from Sanders here. Let's keep going off of this. From Fox News. Oh, we're going to get an autoplay, but your ears are off, so you're not going to hear the autoplay. DNC MC Eva Longoria mocked on social media. "No one is more in touch than actors and celebrities," from Joseph A. Wolfson. The Democratic National Convention raised eyebrows right out of the gate with actress Eva Longoria emceeing the first night of the virtual event. Longoria was one of 4 celebrity MCs who will be serving as a guide from segment to segment and speaker to speaker on each of the 4 nights. The other 3 are Kerry Washington, Tracy Ellis Ross, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Yeah, that's exactly who can relate with the American people. Millionaire actresses and actors who have no idea what it's like to live in the middle of the country, in union worker country. After briefly addressing viewers at home, Longoria conducted the remote interviews with 4 ordinary Americans. However, her hosting duties did not receive the warmest welcome on social media. Brilliant move. No one is more in touch with the challenges and obstacles faced by everyday Americans than actors and celebrities, Senator Marco Rubio said. When I think of who in the United States is best positioned to present a major party's nominated convention, the first person that comes to mind is definitely Eva Longoria, journalist Michael Tracy quipped. Am I supposed to know why Eva Longoria is moderating? Writer Matt Tabby asked. Eva Longoria's formula is very good. Introduce representative of a pandered group. Ask them how they are. After they respond, say, I'm sure other members of pandered group feel the same. Keep going until it's over, podcast host Katie Halper wrote. But seriously, at this rate, will Scott Baio be headlining the 2024 Democratic Convention? Progressive commentator Nomiki Konst tweeted. So yeah, and I mean, that's coming from both sides too, because the far, far left, Nomiki Konst, is even getting in on this one. So that's what the tweets say off of this. And yeah, it's the whole thing with these political parties. Both sides of them do it too. They absolutely do. Just put these big celebrities up there and say, hey, this is why you should vote for the guy. And I mean, the left is trying to build a workers' revolution. So, I mean, even coming from the far left on this point, it's out of touch to bring somebody from Hollywood out to say, hey, no, this is why you should come out and vote. This is great. I love watching this. Oh, I love watching this. All right, from the Daily Wire, DNC convention brutally mocked online. One of the worst things that's ever been on television, from Daily Wire News. The Democratic National Convention was brutally mocked online Monday night during the event's opening night, as many commentators panned it as boring, cringeworthy, and obscene. Former Democratic presidential candidate Marianne Williamson wrote, I wanted to like it. I really did. I promise I did. Left-wing political commentator Timothy Burke wrote, I don't think the broadcast networks were prepared for convention programming that didn't have 10-minute breaks between each appearance. They're all doing analysis nobody wants. Progressive David Pakman wrote, someone please talk me off this ledge. I want to win. In the first 22 minutes of this DNC, I'm scared. Can someone tell me how great this is or something? Washington Post columnist Joe Rogan tweeted, Josh Rogan, not Joe Rogan, tweeted, the cheesy videos that used to be space fillers in the convention have become the convention. Yeah, this is going to be another love fest from Blue Checks, unfortunately, but yeah, that's what they have coming off of this. Cernovich added, 1,700 live viewers of the DNC convention even think with a link from Joe Biden's Twitter account, if cable news didn't cover the convention, it wouldn't exist. Political commentator Noah Pollock wrote, this music vid is crying out for live commentary by Beavis and Butthead. I like that. That's awesome. So, I mean, this article is just nothing but blue checks and the Daily Wire blue checks patting all the other blue checks up on the back. But, I mean, still, it's... If the progressives, if Pakman is saying that this is boring and I don't want to sit back and watch this, then there's something going on here. All right, let's keep going off of this. Back to the New York Post. Here's why Michelle Obama appeared to snub Kamala Harris in a DNC speech, from Stephen Nelson once again. There was one glaring omission from Michelle Obama's 20-minute Democratic National Convention speech Monday night. Kamala Harris. That's because the former First Lady recorded her rousing speech before Joe Biden selected Senator Harris of California as his running mate. The speech was delivered remotely like all others at the DNC because of the coronavirus pandemic, and the AP reports it was filmed before Harris was named last week as Biden's VP candidate, indicating the choice was so close to the vest and down to the wire that even the Obamas were not in the loop. I'm going to call bullshit on that because I'm sure that the Obamas were the ones that selected this woman in the first place. In her speech, Michelle Obama eloquently praised Biden and emotionally denounced Trump's policies. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he's clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we wanted him to be, she said. It is what it is, Obama added. Trump's recent remark on coronavirus death. Right now, kids in this country are seeing what happens when we stop requiring empathy of one another, Obama said. They watch in horror as children are torn from their families and thrown into cages, and pepper spray and rubber bullets are used on peaceful protesters for a photo op. She said that by contrast, Joe knows the anguish of sitting at a table with an empty chair, which is why he gives his time so freely to grieving parents. Joe knows that it's what it's like to struggle, which is why he gives his personal phone number to kids. Pfft. Wow! I didn't read this in the beginning. You guys see this, right? Those of you watching live. Which is why he gives his personal phone number to kids. Man. With everything that Biden has had to go through with the Me Too and the sniffing kids thing, that should not have made it into the speech. Wow. His life is a testament to getting back up, and he is going forward to channel the same grit and passion to pick us all up, to help us heal and guide us forward. Obama's husband, former President Barack Obama, shot to national prominence with the 2004 Democratic Convention speech, which springboarded him into contention for the presidential nomination in 2008. The former First Lady urged people to vote as though it was 2008. You mean going into a war, or coming out of a war, on the precipice of the financial collapse, with people wanting to have free shit after coming out of 20 years of having free shit because of Reagan? So, no. Alright, that's what we're seeing up off of this. Now we've got one here from Marianne Williamson. We saw the little quip from her from the Daily Wire article, but now we have something a little bit more extensive, is the word that I want to use for this. So, from Fox News' Edmund DeMarche, Marianne Williamson, the former 2020 Democratic hopeful, took to Twitter late Monday to criticize the DNC for lacking substance on the issue of racism in the country. Williamson, the spiritual author who was considered an unconventional candidate at the time, responded to actor Mark Ruffalo after he praised the convention's diversity and optimism. He said there was a sweetness and kindliness about this production. Williamson disagreed. She said despite the diversity, no one addressed racism. They showed a lot of beautiful pictures of people of color and made references to the BLM, but there was not one mention of an actual policy to help end systemic racism, she posted. She compared the convention to binge-watching a Marriott commercial. Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate, actually. Michelle Obama, the former First Lady, was the last and longest speech in Democrats' experiment with virtual convention in the coronavirus era. She once again said that when they go low, we go high. If you think things cannot possibly get worse, trust me, they can, and if they will, if we don't make a change this election, Obama said. Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, called the debate underwhelming with no explanation of how a Joe Biden White House would handle the outbreak of violence in cities across the U.S. and the violent protests that have erupted in places like Portland and Seattle. Yes, he has. He'll go out there and challenge everybody to a push-up contest. Critics say Democrats fear alienating large voting blocs if they take the tough stance on these protests. They also risk alienating the moderates in the party if they appear too soft on these acts of violence. Williamson seemed to be uninspired throughout the night. She posted earlier on the Republican Party, has more elitist policies but an oddly more egalitarian relationship to its own constituency. The Democrat Party has more egalitarian policies but oddly more elitist relationship to their own constituency. I hope that changes over the next 3 to 4 days. Yeah, and she's hitting it right on the head. And of course, I mean, the best chance for a nobody to come up through the ranks that wasn't politically selected is to go through the Republican Party at this point. I don't know how that happened and where that came from at this point, because it used to be the other way around. But yes, at this point, the best chance for some nobody, some factory worker, some business owner, somebody who's never been in politics to come up and rise up through the ranks right now is through the Republican Party and actually make a name for himself out on the stage. Now, of course, LP candidates can come up and do the same thing, but they tend to stall coming into national elections and do better on local elections at this point. But yes, there's still a little bit of elitism to the policies. That is changing. You're starting to see that out of the Republican Party. But yes, no. On the Democrat Party at this particular cycle, and I would say the last few cycles as well, people are carefully selected by the DNC to run for any of the offices and seats. I mean, AOC did not get to where she was by grassroots, and everybody knows that at this point. Everybody knows that she wasn't a grassroots candidate, that she was hired to be an actress essentially to be on the DNC. So yes, they go through and they scout out acting talent to come out and become a part of this whole thing. So I don't know. That's what we're seeing up off of this here. I got a couple more on the DNC. We're still going on the DNC right now. We're, 38 minutes into the stream? Michigan Governor Whitmer caught mouthing expletive on DNC live feed. Who cares? I only thought this was interesting because I don't know why anybody should give a damn about this. But let's see what they have to say. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer was caught on a live feed mouthing an expletive while making a joke about Shark Week prior to her Democratic National Convention speech on Monday. Whitmer's comments were not broadcast live, but were picked up on a live feed of her speech before starting. The clip has gone viral since being posted to social media. Whitmer had about 5 minutes of speaking time. When network coverage started up, she primarily talked about COVID-19. Yeah, I would leave that one to bed if I was you, Whitmer. Whitmer reminded viewers of the country's last economic crisis, the Great Recession, and credited Biden, then the vice president, for joining with President Barack Obama, saved the auto sector with a federal bailout. Those workers, she said, have helped more than a decade later to make protective equipment for doctors and nurses during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the past few months, we learned what's essential, rising to the challenge, not denying it. We've learned who is essential too, the governor said. Not just the wealthiest among us, not a president who fights his fellow Americans rather than fight the virus that's killing us in our economy. You shut your economy down while nobody else shut theirs down, Whitmer. It's the people who put their own health at risk to care for the rest of us. So, really? So this Detroit Channel 4 article made a headline saying Michigan governor caught mouthing expletive on DNC live feed, but has nothing in here on why I should give a fuck what's wrong with the fact that she's mouthing an expletive. What the fuck? Why should I give a fuck? Tell me. Instead of giving me a headline so I come in and read this woman's speech. Fuck you guys. You guys suck. Detroit Channel 4, you guys suck. All right, going back after this one, I think this is the last one on the DNC. Finally. Trump fires back at Cuomo after coronavirus criticism in DNC speech. From Megan Henney. President Trump fired back at Andrew Cuomo after the New York governor delivered a blistering Democratic National Convention speech criticizing the White House's response to the coronavirus pandemic. In a tweet, Trump accused the three-term governor of being responsible for thousands of deaths in nursing homes, referring to Cuomo's controversial policy in late March that essentially ordered nursing homes to accept coronavirus patients from hospitals, a measure designed to free up hospital beds. He eventually reversed the order in May after the damage was done. Now, AP estimates that the real Cuomo number of people killed because of his total incompetence is 11,000, not the 6,000 that was originally thought, Trump tweeted. The state has officially reported a care home death toll of more than 6,600. And that's good news, by the way, from the Associated Press. That they consider that good news. But unlike other states with major outbreaks, New York only counts residents who died on nursing home property, not individuals who were transported to hospitals and died there, according to the AP. The discrepancy could add thousands of individuals to the state's nursing home death toll. The Cuomo administration has refused to release the numbers, leading to speculation that the state is intentionally manipulating the figures. No way! Oh my God, I'm so shocked. I'm shocked. Shocked that the state of New York could be manipulating numbers to try and make themselves look better. I'm shocked. I'm not really shocked. 4 months, New York was the epicenter of the virus, which ultimately killed more than 32,000 individuals, the highest death toll in the nation. Trump also tweeted the clip of Cuomo saying the White House's team has been on it, been responsive, late at night, early in the mornings. Cuomo, just like his brother Fredo, has not got a very good memory, he wrote. So yes, we have a little bit more Twitter war going up off of this. Other Republicans were also quick to criticize Cuomo's speech, during which he slammed the Trump administration for its management of the pandemic. Our nation is in crisis, and in many ways, COVID is just a metaphor, the governor said. A virus attacks when the body is weak and when it cannot defend itself. Over these past few years, America's body politic has been weakened. America learned a critical lesson how vulnerable we are when we are divided and how many lives can be lost when our government is incompetent, he added. Yes, no, let's all align behind Cuomo and take our marching orders from the DNC. We'll be just like Antifa. We will march in the streets when the DNC tells us to and eliminate all dissenters. Doesn't that sound fucking fun, you guys? Alright, so that's what we saw for this one here. Now, the president was in my state last night. So we've got a local Fox affiliate to tell us about that here. President Trump's Oshkosh visit draws several supporters and protesters. From Monique Lopez. During President Trump's visit Monday, supporters not only filled up the airport hangar, but some lined up outside for several hours ahead of his visit. But as we've seen before, when President Trump comes to town, supporters are not the only ones who show up. Trump 2020 signs are not hard to find in Oshkosh on Monday. He's done more than Joe Biden could have done on Biden's best day, Trump supporter Randall Terry said. But that didn't mean people against the president or for Biden weren't making their own voices heard too. We need to come together, Ken DeBelius of Princeton said. We need a uniter-in-chief, not a divider-in-chief. So, you would rather vote the person who served under Obama during Ferguson? Things did get a little heated between the two sides, and while they didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, they are both passionate. A Biden supporter from Michigan decked out his truck with flags, stickers, and a Trump display. We've had the giant papier-mâché Trump head since 2016, and we went all over the country trying to, draw attention to the issues. But people will need to see a visual, said Bruce Folk of Rochester Hills, Michigan. Terry, the Trump supporter Felk argued with, drove up from Tennessee in an RV with his family. They had stickers, flags, and even became a band playing anti-Biden songs. We bought a coach, put banners all over it. We have a music. We're doing everything we can, Terry said. We're going all over the country, literally every swing state, to say that if a Christian votes for Biden, they have betrayed innocent babies. A large crowd of people calling itself the We Can't Breathe Coalition to march on the DNC demonstrated in Oshkosh as the president began speaking. Their signs carried many messages around the police violence, racism, and climate change. And that's one thing that we're seeing off of this is, this guy is drawing a crowd. He's absolutely 100% drawing a crowd from around the country. We have people from Michigan, people from Tennessee, coming to either support him or protest against him. But he's drawing a crowd. Biden cannot draw a crowd. People come by the thousands to come and see Trump, whether they love him or hate him, but people by the 14s come to go see Biden. And we wonder where the differential really is coming up out of this. All right, let's keep going up off of this. Speaking of crowds protesting here, from ABC News, crowd protests outside U.S. Postmaster's North Carolina home. And this is coming to me via Britt from the Freckles and Britt Show. Go check them out over on the Freedom Scoop Media Group. I picked this up off of her Twitter feed right before I went live. So let's see what the AP has to say about this. More than 100 demonstrators converged outside the North Carolina mansion of the Postmaster General, protesting the cutbacks, delays, and other changes to the U.S. Postal Service that have created fears for mail-in voting ahead of the November presidential election. Protesters gathered for about 2 hours on Sunday along the streets below Louis DeJoy's gated property, which overlooks the Greensboro County Club golf course. Yeah, that probably didn't need to be added into this, but hey, they need to make this guy seem as evil and out of touch as they can. They chanted and held signs that said or read, "Sabotage of the USPS is un-American," and "Save USPS," among other messages, news outlets said. DeJoy, a Republican fundraiser and a major political donor named to lead the Postal Service in May, has sparked a nationwide outcry over postal delays and cutbacks, just as millions of Americans prepare to vote by mail to avoid polling places during the coronavirus pandemic. The protest follows President Trump's acknowledgement in an interview on Fox Business Network that he's been starving the Postal Service of money. Yeah, I'm going to need a citation on that too in order to make it harder to process an expected surge of mail-in ballots, which he worries could cost him the election. Wow, they're not even trying to hide the ball that they're sitting up in Biden's camp at this one here. And here's the one that gets me. And I said this up in the intro too. Thousands of people are gathering to protest shoulder to shoulder outside DeJoy's house to make sure that they can stay at home and vote rather than going and voting in person. Think about that one for a second. Think about that for just a second. The idea of what's going on here. I don't know what they're expecting to accomplish with all this, but I mean, this is devastating for their cause, no matter how positively ABC News tries to spin it. But that's what we're seeing up off of this one here. I've got another one on the post office. The Postmaster General is set to testify before Congress on service changes, mail-in ballots, from Ebony Bowden over at the New York Post. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy has agreed to testify before Congress next week amid allegations from Democrats that he's undermining the cash-strapped U.S. Postal Service ahead of the November election. House Oversight Committee Chairwoman Representative Caroline Maloney wrote to DeJoy on Sunday calling for an urgent hearing on cost-cutting changes at the USPS, sparking fears it could slow delivery and impinge on Americans' ability to cast postal votes. DeJoy, a Trump appointee who came into the role in May of this year, agreed to appear before the committee on Monday, August 24th at 10 a.m. Excuse me. You can't breathe the water, folks. Sorry about that. Oh, it's a little bit painful. Your testimony is particularly urgent given the troubling influx of reports of widespread delays at postal facilities across the country, as well as President Trump's explicit admission last week that he has been blocking critical coronavirus funding for the Postal Service in order to impair mail-in voting efforts for the upcoming elections in November, Maloney wrote. President Trump on Monday accused the USPS of being run horribly and has said he's opposed funding increases for the agency to help with mail-in ballot delivery because he believes it's a fraudulent way to vote. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced Sunday that her chamber would be recalled to vote on legislation from Maloney that would bar the USPS from making any changes to services that were running at the start of the year, blocking DeJoy's cost-cutting plans. It's funny. It's almost as if that's actually already in the charter for the USPS. It's almost as if the USPS has already said, no, we're not going to do this anymore before the election because we know we're going to get fucking slammed. I don't know. It's almost like we didn't read that yesterday. But that's what we're seeing up off of this here. Anything to go out and protest and be devastating to the narrative that people need to stay home and not be seen next to each other. But it's okay. The coronavirus doesn't go to left-wing protests. They only go to right-wing protests where people peacefully carry guns into the Michigan Capitol. That's the only place that the coronavirus goes for protests. All right, speaking of protests, I've got one here from the Daily Wire. Black Lives Matter, or Black Lives Don't Matter to Democrats. GOP candidate releases vile ad crushing Dems. From Amanda Giacomo. On Monday, Republican strategist and congressional GOP candidate Kimberly Klacik released an ad slamming Democrats for their apparently fake concern for black lives, highlighting the devastation in Democrat-run cities, particularly Baltimore. Klacik is the Republican nominee running for the seat of late Congressman Elijah Cummings in Maryland's 9th District. Democrats don't want you to see this, Klacik captioned the ad, which was viewed over 700,000 times in 3 hours. They're scared that I'm exposing what life is like in Democrat-run cities. That's why I'm running for Congress, because all Black Lives Matter, Baltimore matters, and black people don't have to vote Democrat. The brutal ad features Klacik walking through the streets of Baltimore, where there are broken windows, destroyed buildings, and abandoned homes. Do you care about black lives? The people who run Baltimore don't. I can prove it. Walk with me. They don't want you to see this, Klacik said in the ad, before strolling through the devastated city. Walking by boarded up and run-down buildings, the congressional hopeful continues, "This is the reality for black people every single day, crumbling infrastructure, abandoned homes, poverty, and crime." Baltimore has been run by the Democrat Party for 53 years, she says. What is the result of their decades of leadership? Baltimore is one of the top 5 most dangerous cities in America. The murder rate in Baltimore is 10 times the U.S. average. Baltimore poverty rate is over 20%. Homicide, drug, and alcohol deaths are skyrocketing in our city. Do you believe Black Lives Matter? I do. The vast majority of crime in Baltimore is perpetuated against black people, who make up 60% of the population. So why don't we care about our communities? She asks. The Democrat Party have betrayed black people of Baltimore. If the politicians walk the streets like I do, they would see exactly how their policies and corruption affects us. But they don't want to see it. They don't want you to see this. The ad then features 3 black residents, 2 males and 1 female, being asked if they want the police defunded, a rallying cry for Democrats. All 3 vehemently decline, noting the violence that would ravage the city further without police. It's not just Baltimore, Klacik says. The worst place for a black person to live in America is a Democrat-controlled city. In 2020, name a blue city where black people's lives have gotten better. Democrats think black people are stupid, the Republican asserts. They think they can control us forever, that we won't demand better, that we'll keep voting for them forever despite what they've done to our families and our communities. Are they right? Asked Klacik. Now, of course, this is not going to get any traction, and this is going to be suppressed by YouTube and most of your streaming services, so I don't know how many people are actually going to see this, but yes, this is something that we need to sit out and consider. And of course, this woman's going to come out and drug out as an Uncle Tom, especially if she gains any sort of prominence anywhere. Oh, look at this Uncle Tom. Aunt Tom, I don't know what you call that, but yeah, that's what they're going to call her, and anything to try and keep the party in power. And that is the party, capital T, capital P. So that's what we're seeing up. I'm going to hold on to this and see if I can find this video. Yeah, it's right here. We'll probably play this on next Monday's show. So I'm going to hold on to this here and we'll look at this. All right, let's keep going. I got just a few more for you guys here. And then we'll read the Twitter trending. Seattle police released body cam showing officers being injured by explosives during the riots. From Louis Cassiano. Footage from police body camera showed Seattle police officers being targeted with explosives amid a night of unrest Sunday that resulted in 6 injured officers and 18 arrests. Various body-worn cameras and social media recordings showed explosives going off near officers as they tried to control a crowd in the city's SODO neighborhood during an anti-cop protest. At one point, officers could be seen briefly retreating as explosives are hurled at them. Another angle shows an explosive loudly going off near an officer on a bicycle. The protest march began around 7 p.m. with 100 people and a few vehicles following behind, the Seattle Police Department said. Just before 10 p.m., somebody in the crowd set off a large explosive and attempted to break a police vehicle window, police said. After the crowd was told to disperse, officers were pelted with rocks and bottles at officers along with explosives. One explosive went off right next to a woman. She was being escorted by an officer. Peaceful protests, folks. Peaceful. Peaceful protests. Several cops were hit with munitions and injured, the Seattle Police Department Monday night said. One sustained an injury into the eye and another suffered burns in the back of the neck. Another officer was taken to a hospital and released but is not returned to duty. A riot was declared and officers used blast balls and pepper spray to stop the chaos. The police department said the crowd was eventually dispersed and 18 people were arrested. Yes, no, but these are completely peaceful protests where once again they're standing shoulder to shoulder. Standing shoulder to shoulder and protesting by throwing explosives at police officers. That's what we're seeing up out of here. Let's keep going. Oh, I got autoplay going. Let's shut that up. From the New York Post, BLM mob beats white man unconscious after making him crash truck. Video. This is actually, I should have covered this yesterday, but I completely missed this in the itinerary, but I wanted to make sure that we talked about this one as well. From Lee Brown. A mob of Portland Black Lives Matter protesters forced a white man to crash his truck, then punched and kicked him unconscious. The disturbing footage shows. A series of clips on social media shows the victim being surrounded in his white Ford truck at 10:30 p.m. Sunday as others attacked a woman he was with, who was punched and even tackled to the ground during the violent melee. He didn't do nothing, someone could be heard calling as others punched the driver as he sat in his truck, which was also repeatedly kicked. The unidentified driver eventually sped off, with the mob chasing him, with some heard loudly laughing while he crashed into a tree and then a building, according to the clips. He was dragged from the truck and tackled to the ground as he begged for help, getting repeatedly punched as he tried to call his wife while pleading with his attackers as he sat on the ground, the video shows. I ain't trying to hurt no one, he told them, with the unexplained accusation heard in the clips being that COVID is real. I was trying to get out of the way, he insisted of crashing his truck, as several of the group punched him in the face and repeatedly called the white driver the N-word. And there's the picture. As the mob dispersed to watch another fight, the main offender circled back around, kicking the defenseless driver in the face from behind, instantly knocking him out with his head cracking on the road. The fuck is you talking about? The attacker, wearing a shirt with security on the front and back, screamed after the thud of the victim's head hitting the ground. The victim was then showed bleeding from a large wound in the back of his head as he appeared unconscious throughout another almost 2.5-minute clip. The woman was shown sobbing nearby as the mob held her back, appeared to rifle through his truck. Black Lives Matter, one man continually ranted as other people checked the victim was still alive, even as he remained unconscious. A woman was heard taunting him, "Get your bitch ass up!" Police in riot gear had to assist the ambulance crews, helping him as they were confronted by a hostile crowd, Portland police said in a release. But no, hey, if we get the federal agents out of there, they're just going to be peaceful. It's going to be a peaceful demonstration if we get the federal agents out of there, and they're not going to go after civilians. What? For those of you who are listening back on the audio platform, I'm shaking my head right now because I can't believe what I'm seeing out of this country, and the fact that they're still trying to feed us the fact that this is peaceful. This is disgusting. And by the way, also for the people that are reading back or listening back rather through the audio platform, there were a series of N-words that were spattered through here as well that I'm not going to read up on here. The people on the live stream and the people watching back on the video can see them in the background of the website that I have up behind me, but on the audio platform, you guys aren't going to be able to see this. So yes, they were throwing the N-word around left and right. Hard R too. All right. Let's see. 4 more, and then we're done. Abuses of discretion, operational failures. Special counsel releases report blasting Chicago prosecutor for Jussie Smollett deal from Emily Zanotti over at the Daily Wire. A special prosecutor designed to or designated to assess how the Cook County State's Attorney Office handled the Jussie Smollett case released his report lambasting Chicago prosecutor Kim Foxx for abuses of discretion, special treatment, and other malfeasances related to Smollett's alleged hoax hate crime. Special prosecutor Dan Webb released both a 12-page summary and a full 60-page report of his findings, and though he found no criminal wrongdoing, Webb had plenty to say on Fox's office's decision to allow Smollett to bargain to an unofficial plea deal. And we just lost Instagram, so thank you everybody who watched over there. Hopefully you guys can get up into the link above you and head on over to this site. To allow Smollett to bargain to an unofficial plea deal inked outside the boundaries of the legal system, with Fox's office dropping 16 charges of lying to Chicago police in return for a mere 16 hours of community service and for forfeiting a $10,000 bond, which for a Hollywood actor is like nothing. The investigation, Webb said in a statement, did not develop evidence that would support any criminal charges against the state's attorney Foxx or any individual working in her office. But he added the investigation did develop an evidence that establishes substantial abuses of discretion and operational failures. In particular, Webb said that Smollett's sweetheart deal, which did not involve any true plea to a crime, but which did not absolve Smollett of wrongdoing, was not available to all Cook County defendants as Foxx claimed. There were not thousands or arguably any similar cases that the CCSAO resolved in a similar way to the initial Smollett case, Webb noted. The CCSAO could not identify any specific similar CCSAO cases in which it relied upon when resolving the Smollett case. Foxx told the media that at the time that the CCSAO had referred more than 5,700 cases for alternative prosecution. This is not new or unusual practice. So, yeah, they're not going to bring anything because this guy would be found in the bottom of Lake Michigan with concrete around his ankles if he did try to go after one of the sweethearts on the Chicago city government. The government officials would make sure that he was never heard from again. So, yes, we have the report out there, but he can't make a criminal charge because, well, let's face it, they would send a message with him. All right, let's see. Trump says he will pardon someone very, very important on Tuesday. From Andrew O'Reilly. Fox News reports President Trump said on Monday that he plans to pardon somebody very, very important on Tuesday, but we're not going into details about who it is. Speaking to reporters on Air Force One while on his way back to Washington from a tour of battleground states in the Midwest, Trump dropped the news about the upcoming pardon, saying that only that it would not be former NSA staffer Edward Snowden or Trump's former national security advisor Michael Flynn. Trump over the weekend hinted that he was going to be considering pardoning Snowden, the former NSA contractor who had been living in Russia since he leaked information on vast domestic and international surveillance operations carried out by the NSA. The Washington, D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals recently told parties to be ready to answer questions about the effect of federal statutes on judiciary impartiality in a brief order in connection with the legal dispute over the Justice Department's move to drop charges against Flynn. The order, which indicated that one court may be planning to question the impartiality of a judge on another court, is the latest twist in the years-long legal saga. After Flynn had pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI, then later sought to withdraw that plea, the DOJ, in an unusual move, sought to drop the charges, citing alleged misconduct by the investigators and a lack of evidence. Then, in his own unusual move, the district court judge Emmett Sullivan, who is the trial-level judge on the Flynn case, refused to immediately grant the motion to drop the charges. He appointed an amicus curiae, Latin for friend of the court, to argue against the DOJ nomination. While pardons generally come at the end of a president's term, Trump has used them along with commutations of sentences throughout his time in the White House. Trump has pardoned Bernard Kerik, once New York City's police commissioner, who served 3 years in prison for tax fraud and making false statements after lying to the George W. Bush White House while being interviewed to serve as Homeland Security Secretary. More recently, the president commuted the sentence for Rod Blagojevich, The former Illinois governor, who spent more than 8 years in prison for his failed attempt to sell the U.S. Senate seat that was made vacant after Barack Obama's 2008 election, sent him to the White House. So, yes, and we don't know who this is going to be, but I'm very interested to see who it is and how the mainstream news media reacts to the point or of who this is. So we will see later on today who this is going to be. All right, this is one that has had me curious since yesterday, and I've seen no corroboration of any of this, but I want to see what's going on with this as well. From the Daily Wire, Rush Limbaugh did not call Kamala Harris a hoe. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. Left-wing politicos erupted with outrage on Monday over conservative talk show host Rush Limbaugh allegedly calling the Democrat vice presidential pick, Senator Kamala Harris, a hoe. And yes, we saw all of the major blue checks out here talking about this and Mrs. Krasenstein. However, despite the viral post, Mr. Limbaugh never characterized the Democrat as such. Instead, Limbaugh noted that a freelance photographer contracted with the NBA was recently canned for sharing a meme that referred to Harris as a hoe, referring to former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown promoting his past adulterous relationship with Harris and boasting that he helped boost her career. I have two stories about Kamala Harris, Limbaugh said on Friday. One's from The Spectator, and one is from the Oddball Sports websites. The NBA has fired a freelance photographer because he insulted Kamala Harris. His name is Bill Baptist. Baptist's contract with the NBA was terminated over a sexist Facebook post referencing Kamala Harris, the radio host read from a report. Baptist apparently posted an image of presumptive Democratic presidential nominee and former VP Joe Biden alongside Harris, with the caption, Joe and the Hoe, spelled H-O-E per Limbaugh. Limbaugh then spoke about Harris's past affair with Brown, reading pull quotes from a piece that The Spectator titled, Why It Should Matter to Women That Kamala Harris Slept Her Way to the Top. Whoa! You know what that's about? That's about Willie Brown, the host said. This is really what they got pissed off about yesterday? This is really it, folks. Yeah, because I went back and I listened to the Limbaugh show and I backed it up to the beginning yesterday to try and figure out what was going on with this. And then I realized that this was coming from hours earlier. Yeah, this was a completely manufactured crisis that had no basis in reality, like most of them that we see at this point. What the hell? What the hell, people? He was quoting somebody else. All right, last one here, and then we will read the Twitter trending. From the New York Post, funeral for Robert Trump, President Trump's brother, to take place on Friday, from Ebony Bowden. President Trump says he intends to hold his younger brother's funeral at the White House on Friday, telling reporters it would be a great honor to the late executive. We may do just a small service right here in the White House for my brother, Trump said in the White House South Lawn on Monday after Robert died in Manhattan on Saturday at the age of 71. I think it would be a great honor to him. I think he'd be greatly honored. He loved our country. He loved our country so much. He would be so proud of what we're doing and what we're doing for our country, he continued. I think it would be appropriate, so we'll have it probably this Friday afternoon, a small service in honor of my brother, Robert, he said. It's unclear where in the executive mansion the funeral will be held, with the nearest chapel, St. John's Episcopal Church, on the other side of Lafayette Square. Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and their son Barron returned to the White House on Sunday evening, the first time the trio had been seen in public since before the coronavirus outbreak in winter. Dude, that kid got tall in a hurry. Barron, 14, appeared to tower over his 5'11" mom, even appeared several inches taller than his 6'3" dad, as the three touched down on the White House lawn on Marine One after spending the weekend at the President's Golf Resort in Bedminster, New Jersey. So I wonder if the Hatch Act is going to come out about that one too, because when they were talking about the political speech, that was the first thing that came out, and technically the Hatch Act doesn't apply to the president, but still, technically, under the Hatch Act, that would be a violation, but we will see because it is also the presidential home. So I'm not sure where that would fall, but I'm sure somebody somewhere is going to have a problem with this. But once again, our condolences go out to the president's family for the loss of the president's brother. And we will see what happens on Friday and see how they try to spin all of this. All right, and the last thing that we do on Tuesday is we read the Twitter trending for the week. So I've got that up here. We're going to hit a quick refresh on here so we get the freshest ones. And we will skip all of the Tuesday thoughts. So we will read 5 trends from the top of the trending. Number 1, Tatis trending with Chris Woodward and the Padres. Mark Craig writes, Fernando Tatis Jr. got reprimanded for trying even in a blowout, yet if that exact same context were to hit a routine grounder and then jog out of the box to first base, would it be okay for him to say, screw it, we're up big, I don't feel like running? So apparently Tatis didn't go after a ground ball or something. I don't know. I haven't watched baseball this year because they got woke too, so I have no idea what's going on in baseball anymore. But yeah, apparently he decided that he didn't want to go chase the ball because let the other guys have a run. Participation trophy kind of shit. All right, let's go back and see what we have here. Second one we'll read for the day. 19th Amendment. Today is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote, and Blonde in the Belly of the Beast is probably sitting in a corner crying right now because of the 19th Amendment. Just repeal the 19th. That's probably what she's sitting there saying. She's probably sitting in the corner, sad over the fact that there is a 19th Amendment. All right, number 3. Convo selfie. That'll be interesting. Convo selfie, we're getting ready. It's almost time. Fisher Kinder team is ready for the Convocation 2020 Convo selfie. I wonder if this has something to... I don't know what Convo is. I've heard of it before. But yes, if they're all going to Convo for some sort of thing, then yes, that's going to be starting here, and they're going to be virtue signaling with all of their masks to do so. All right, number 4. Michelle Obama, which we know what that's all about because we listened to her speech, or we didn't listen to her speech. I read some of the transcript of her speech, and we talked about that from a New York Post article earlier. And the last one today is Susan B. Anthony, which is going to go right along with the 19th Amendment. President Donald Trump pardoned Susan B. Anthony, a women's rights activist who played a pivotal role in the women's suffrage movement. By 16, she was an anti-slavery activist. In 1872, Anthony was arrested for voting in her hometown of Rochester, New York, and convicted. So, the sexist president of the United States is pardoning Susan B. Anthony posthumously for what she did to try and bring women the right to vote. And yet he and all the GOP want people back in the kitchen for this. Wrap your head around that one here and the intellectual consistency that they have for this. All right, that's going to be it for the day here. So we will be back here later on tonight with some more video games, unless some sort of major breaking news happens and I have to do an emergency live stream for that. So definitely come back and check us out, though, later on tonight. We're going to be playing some more New Vegas. It'll be a lot of fun. I really enjoy that, and we really do need to work on getting through that so we can play other video games on Tuesday nights. So hope you guys will join me for that. I'm looking definitely forward to it after all the work that I've had to do over the last couple days and everything else. I'm definitely looking forward to doing that, so come on over and check us out over there. Otherwise, we will be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.